going on down there?
Aaron, welcome to WTF at TCG.
Hey, been a bit.
Yeah. Welcome, dear guest, Aaron, to WTF at TCG. It's a podcast where we talk about the TCG.
Yeah, I figured that from the name.
By the way, were you at TFCon? Did you see the great panel that I did with a guy about the TCG, how to get into it?
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah, I was sitting right next to you, Chris.
Yeah.
You're way behind on getting videos up, so that may be why you've forgotten.
It's been a while. I remember that great PowerPoint slide. I remember the part where someone also, I think, thought we were from Wizards and started asking us for Wave 3 spoilers.
Yeah, that was fun.
And before I made up a whole bunch, you cut in and said we don't have any. Stomping all over my fun. Well, guess what? Now we do. But before we talk about that, we're also joined by Drew Nolosco once again. Hello, Drew.
Hey guys, how's it going? Good to be on the show again.
Yeah, welcome back. It's going all right. We got some positive Canadian news related to the game basically today from the coalition of Toronto retailers. And we've also got a whole pile of news for the world because y'all basically are moving into your Wave 3 push. That seems pretty exciting.
That we are. Oh, I have been dying to show this stuff to the world for quite some time now. We've been working on this actually much longer than you guys might have imagined. The coordination with Hasbro has been pretty intense.
Yeah, seeing all of the Siege basically like artwork and style showing up was quite a surprise. Also seeing little dudes who turn into guns made me think of a conversation we had with you guys some months ago, and it's another one of those ones where I'm trying to think if I could have heard the moment of silence that might have said something way back then.
I try really, really hard to keep a neutral tone and a neutral face, but there was a conversation that I had with you guys that was pretty spot on, I think.
Yeah, we're not gonna like break down everything because the Wave 3 reveal happened a little while ago, so we're pretty sure most folks listening to this are aware of a lot of the new stuff, and we've got some new stuff to talk about. But I have two quick things before we get into the Wave 3 stuff, if you're up for it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Number one, this one is basically on behalf of the community. I got to throw it out there. Is it time yet to find out what your Wave 1 tanks deck list was?
Oh my god. I still haven't spoiled that.
I'm not saying that we got to know it right now. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, so the thing that was unusual at the time about that deck was a lot of people have sort of found the deck or very similar, but the key thing at the time when people were talking about decks is I was running an all blue tank deck.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of the tank decks ended up getting there. But the idea that you just basically sit back and do nothing but be the maximum defense was where a lot of tank decks have ended up.
Okay.
But I was running that a little bit earlier because I have the benefit of foresight. Let's just call it.
Yeah.
There's some cool updated tank stuff coming up.
Okay, cool. I have a couple general questions once we go through the spoilers. The other one is I was going to mention I had two great ideas to start off this discussion when we set up this podcast, and you guys basically took my thunder twice. One of them was going to be, hey, would you say if we looked at a list of the Siege toy line, would that basically be like a character list? And then you dropped one of the spoilers you dropped on us, so that kind of solved that. The other one was, hey, no pressure. Did you guys see that infinite combo deck? But then today, you guys completely took my thunder out on that one.
Okay, want to talk about that one for a bit?
Sure. Yeah, like I will say, like, I would direct our listeners if they really want to see a lot of details. Like that note you guys dropped, I super appreciate how much detail you went into in there, especially with all of the alternate solutions, because one of those was the one I was 100% behind. And speaking to someone who was 100% behind it, which was just limiting the number of extra turns, I really appreciate that you guys went in there and also explained why that didn't do enough. I'm used to, in my brief time with Tabletop, seeing erratas, bans, and restrictions being a kind of a list of cards and then often a couple nebulous statements, and that's about it. I felt there was a lot of transparency here, and that was really above and beyond, so I want to say thanks for that.
You're welcome. That transparency is super important to us. We want people to know why we're making pretty important decisions like this. And the specific reason why we didn't go for the limiting the extra turns is because while that would have limited this specific iteration of a degenerate combo, we were concerned about future iterations if we left the engine intact.
Yeah.
And so what we really needed to do in order to provide longer term stability for the metagame was kill the engine.
Yeah. I had not considered the sheer, I guess, meat of swap parts in that combo until the note had laid out. It wasn't just that it was swapping a couple things, it was taking two fully equipped specialists covered in specialist things and switching those around, which kind of opened my eyes a little bit.
And if we left the engine intact and just nuked this specific deck, and there's a few variations of this deck. There's a version that we made of the Infinite Combo deck that adds a little bit more burn to try and burn through a Torox. But there's every time that we add a specialist card to the game, it would have added new options for this engine to do new types of degenerate things. So by killing the engine, we still have the freedom to make cool specialist related cards. And that's really important to us because specialists are, one of the three main types of character breakdowns.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, in the long term, it definitely creates like a neat moment in the history of the game. I know that basically, it even said so in the note on Facebook. No one seemed to really think swap parts was going to be the one card that did it. And so now we once had the Sergeant Cup in joke. Now we have the swap parts in joke.
Yep.
I already saw someone like banding around like, hey, what are we going to call the pre-swap parts ban format? What kind of eternal name? And then I was just like, let's call it the swap parts format. Like, fully immortalize that poor card.
We're gonna encase one in lucite and stick it on the windowsill.
Yeah. I mean, here's my last little thing on that. I'll also just say that card always had it coming because every time I played it, anytime anyone played it, I'd always have to stop the game and go like, just so you know, there's no swap going on in that artwork. First Aid's giving him something. He's not giving him the hoverboard. Like, spoiler alert.
Hey, maybe he is giving the hoverboard. Maybe that just happens in the next panel. Maybe he needs the hoverboard to go help other people swap parts later.
I was like, this is just a misleading ploy for Tailgate to get more presents, because everyone thinks if they give him something, he'll give him the hoverboard, and he never does. This card was degenerate from the start. But yeah, I think that you guys handled that. I think you handled it pretty well. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of community discussion going on. I told Aaron, I think it would be weird for me to start discussing my thoughts on the community reaction with you guys like sitting right in the room. But it also seemed like you guys did a ton of playtesting outside of just that one deck list. Was that all done in like the space of that last 3 weeks?
Yes, we did a crash program on this.
Okay.
And a bunch of people spent a significant amount of time, including some folks. Lucas Letzinger jumped in and gave us a lot of help. Other folks from the Duel Masters and Magic team jumped in. When we have a kind of a critical thing like this, we want to make sure we get on top. We get on top of it quickly. B, we understand the problem completely, which is why we ended up not going for example, changing the definition of swap, and that we had a solution that did minimum harm as it fixed the thing, a very sort of Hippocratic Oath solution.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the paragraph that laid out that you guys want to keep things like, Thundercracker swinging in for 20 or chained brainstorms, all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, a lot of that to me cleared up a lot of the easy follow-up questions. Like, is this, the broad strokes responsive? Is this just punishing a clever combo? And laying out, like, those three kind of golden rules of the game and how this specifically was running in conflict with those golden rules helped me out a lot with trying to figure out why I felt like this. There was a lot of discussion with this deck initially of like, how is this different than X, Y, and Z, and I kept thinking like, well, this deck is obviously different because it's infinite, but that's kind of a broad strokes answer. Laying out how it conflicted with the goals of the game, I think was really helpful for me, at least.
And that was our purpose, and I'm glad that came through very strongly. One of the key things for us is this is a 2-player game and people have to take turns. So there are all kinds of things that you can do in this game that are crazy and may result in you KOing an enemy character, and then the other person gets a turn. And so in some extreme situations, you'll be able to take an extra turn, and then the person takes a turn after that. And that was pretty important for us to preserve. And then secondly, we want to make sure that, and this is why we didn't do, like, let's say we could go back in time, swap parts would have been a different card, right? Like there would have been some different design elements. Maybe we would have put it in set 2 and it would have cost stars, as an example. It's important for us to minimize the dissonance between what you read on the card and the, quote, truth of what that card says. And the Transformers team gets to make that choice for our game. And it's not something like there's a blanket company statement at WotC that we must all keep our games performing this way. And the Transformers team's values that very strongly, particularly as we're a new game, that if you read the card, it does, you know what the card does. So that's why we did show, that's specifically why we chose not to errata the card, because it obfuscates what's going on to someone.
Yeah.
Right.
And like this is my personal feelings. Like I'm kind of glad it didn't come down. Like the type of errata I would have been okay with was one that was a very broad strokes one about extra turns. A specific card errata, like I can deal with it for 1 or 2 cards, but mostly due to like my own poor memory. Once there are like a number of erratas on a lot of specific cards, it becomes harder for me to kind of remember all of it.
Yes. Exactly.
And so, even though I'm not against erratas, like I appreciate the notion behind not wanting to alter what's written on the card. Like in general, I feel like no matter how one responds to this, like whether or not one agrees with it, at least it's clear where you guys were coming from.
We know that not everyone's going to agree with our decision because people have different priorities for their own play, and that's cool, right? Like we all come into this game and all of our games seeking different things at different times, but we wanted to make sure that the lay of the land was as clear as possible in as few words as possible. And that definitely went into our decision-making process.
Yeah. Would it be a somewhat correct train of thought to think that, given that it was like a 3-week crash course of work, it's not likely you guys are going to be actively seeking a ban solution, like constantly? Because I mean, obviously one of the reactions is like, does this mean, card bans are a thing now? With the amount of work put into that note, I got the impression that this was a lot of work that you probably don't want to be doing constantly.
I'll say 2 things there. No, we're not. We don't look out and seek to ban cards on a regular basis. In general, we prefer to catch this kind of stuff earlier in the design process, and B, if something doesn't fall out of those boundaries that we're setting, those 3 philosophy statements that we had, things that the metagame can deal with internally. Like that's one of the cool things about trading card games is if something's getting powerful, most of the time there are other deck choices you can play to deal with that. But in this particular case, there was no other deck choice that solved it. Once we figured out how the deck could beat the Torox opening the game on the other side, there's no coming back from this deck. So that's why we had to take the action.
And it also gives me a lot of confidence in the future of this game, because the first thing I thought was, okay, if Torox is the answer, how long until we figure out how bulletproof an answer he is? How much testing will, various voices in the community have to do? And then it turns out you guys all did that testing in a super duper crash course. So
yeah, and I will say that the extreme amount of commentary from the community was helpful because we looked at all. You guys were playtesting this as while we were, and that was a valuable resource for us to help make the right decision.
Aaron, I forgot. Did you have anything else you wanted to throw in about the infinite combo?
No, it's along with what you said, I think the only people I've seen terribly negative reactions out of are the types that are like, but I found a way to guarantee a win every time. That just makes it boring for everybody else. But that means I win, and it's like,
that's a little bit outside the spirit of the game.
Right. It's not you're not playing solitaire while holding somebody else hostage. You're playing a game.
Well, and legit props to the guy who created like the specific deck list in question. Like he seemed quite set on like, I don't actually want this deck to be like the one deck that wins the game. I just made it because I could, and I made it to show people it's possible. Like it didn't seem like he was like protective of keeping this thing legitimate. So I forgot who it was that came up with the list, but I wanted to give a quick shout out for that too. I appreciate when someone comes up with something like that, but then says, also, I'm completely fine if this is dealt with.
Yeah, props to that player for his her deck building skill. That was a pretty a pretty innovative take on how to approach the metagame, and that was awesome.
And I hope they can live with the fact that they, were the one who put the gun to the side of the head of swap parts, and that its ghost will haunt them for the rest of time. Anything? I think actually I was going to say anything else about it. I think that basically covers most of the infinite combo stuff. As I said, dear listener, if you haven't, please go read the note and explanation that these folks put up on Facebook. It is really comprehensive, far more comprehensive than I honestly was expecting, and it left me quite satisfied. Moving on from there, we do have some spoilers. We've got 2 characters, a battle card, and then another character. Technically 3 characters. 3.5 characters?
It'd be 2.5. That's
2.5
math.
characters? 2.5, 3.5. Let's start off with the one that I was talking about first, which is Alpha Trion, Cybertronian Sage. Now, this is the one where originally I was going to ask you guys, could one look at the Siege toy line and kind of guesstimate most of the character list from there? But then you drop this Alpha Trion on me and Aaron, whose artwork looks very much not like the Siege packaging artwork while staying in the style, whose robot mode looks a whole lot like an Alpha Trion that came out a couple years ago. This seems like it's original art as opposed to shared packaging art. Am I off course or on course with that?
This art is a sort of half and half. It is a modification of some Hasbro library art to bring it into the style of the world of Siege.
Okay.
And one of the things that we did with Siege in our collaboration with Hasbro, because we've been there pretty much from the beginning, is we put out so many more character cards that one of the advantages of the TCG is we can show all the other characters who may not be able to make it into a toy line. Mm-hmm. So we worked with Hasbro to show, include a whole bunch of characters in their sort of Cybertronian or Cybertronian-ish look and feel, so you can see what they're doing and where they are in the story of War for Cybertron Siege.
Okay.
So this is very interestingly, Alpha Trion, I believe, is the only character in War for Cybertron Siege who does not have a military title, because he is sort of the this is not the son of Primus version of Alpha Trion. This is the ancient Sage, Autobot Sage sort of characterization of Alpha Trion.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I was also going to ask about all those military titles once we got to another character, so I'll bank that one. I want to stay focused on Alpha Trion for a sec here, because this dude he's 11 stars, and if I were to encapsulate him, he's kind of like the way his abilities and flip powers read is it's kind of like a slightly less scary version of Optimus Prime Battlefield Legend.
It's entirely possible that Alpha Trion taught Optimus Prime everything he knows.
Yeah, and then Optimus, being younger, is able to do it a little bit, faster, a little bit more frighteningly with his youth and all that. But yeah, Alpha Trion, when you flip to his alt mode, you can return an orange action from your scrap pile, as opposed to any action. And when he attacks in robot mode, you can play one of the blue pip actions you flipped, as opposed to any action you flipped. Obviously, that also runs with the fact that he's 11 stars instead of 13 stars. And I think that's pretty cool as far like that concept you just said, like that clicks with me. It makes a lot of sense. Also, this seems like a way to have that play style, perhaps with slightly less of the inherent guilt one might have running Battlefield Legend just on anybody at their local gaming space. This guy also brings in, I just want to mention, the spaceship tag once again.
He sure does.
I don't want additional spoilers because we have plenty to talk about, but if you're able to say so, is this the set where spaceships get a little bit of spaceship love, or are they still just chilling out and adding to the list?
It's possible that there might be some spaceship love in this set.
All right. Just bouncing off that. How are helicopters and motorcycles feeling?
I'm gonna.
One of those I have heavy interest in because it keeps me fed.
There might be some helicopters and or motorcycles in Cybertronian versions of those in the set, but you're gonna have to wait and see for support for that.
That was probably the deepest flathead screwdriver into the crevice of the locked door I'm going to be going for in this one.
You mean you're not going to take that opening and stick it?
Well, I mean, yeah. I could also keep hammering on the door until I get taken out by security.
Not yet. He's got to rope-a-dope you a little bit. He's got to make you feel secure and then go for it again. But thanks for calling it out.
So I will I will say this. There is a particularly favorite spaceship support card in this set that also features Alpha Trion in all new art.
Okay, cool. Because also, I mean, I couldn't help but notice, that super rare Shockwave also being a spaceship, and then my boy from Wave 1, Shockwave, being a spaceship. There's a lot of spaceships I'm kind of waiting to just drop on people's heads.
And it's one of the themes of War for Cybertron Siege overall. So you'll see spaceships show up in both 1 and 2.
Goody. Aaron, before we I kind of bulldozed you a little bit, and aside from helicopters are basically like spaceships but within the atmosphere. How are you feeling about Alpha Trion?
Well, the thing that I think's neat about it is it's a thing that when I first saw it looks to be trying to draw more people into balanced decks. Between orange pips and blue pips. It seems like so many people's strategies out there are, if you're not leaning hard one way or the other, what's the point?
Definitely.
And you can use inverted to cheat if you have to, which is what my Blitzwing RC Thrust deck kind of did. And I think that trying to make something built, to utilize Alpha Trion better, you're going to have to be balanced or else you're not going to get those benefits.
You are. And then one of the other things I want to about Alpha Trion is specifically his lower star cost in relation. He interacts with action cards, gives you some options to do this type of play, but also includes star cost actions.
And obviously star cost battle cards seem to be the ones that are also the new location of the multi-pip data bank, basically. We're in Wave 2 we saw, and we're going to talk about one in Wave 3. Multi-pip cards definitely are still happening. They seem to, as of now, and I agree with this approach, be confined to star cost cards to prevent, some ludicrous decks. And also, I think, to kind of keep Metroplex in a certain level of check. But that definitely, now that I think about it, the limitation, quote unquote, right, of which pip type to use technically doesn't apply to a multi-pip card that has orange and blue on it. So that's interesting. So that is one of the rares. That's rare number 1. That's character card number 1 in the set. I only just noticed that.
Yep.
So I guess bouncing off that, let's talk about the other character card we got here, because I was told that you really wanted to talk about this fella. This is character card, another rare, number 32, Raider Needlenose, the Air Force Soldier. And this is a fellow, as this was described to us, this was you guys getting a chance to really specifically work a character into the Siege style for your own purposes, as opposed to just playing off what the toy line's doing.
Yeah, and so this is all new art. And one of the things that's pretty cool about War for Cybertron Siege 1 and 2 is that we worked with Hasbro to reimagine some number of the characters as all new art in specifically what their Cybertronian forms are. So you guys might remember Needlenose from G1. He was a jet fighter, but he had a very specific body form in his alt mode that was very different from a lot of the other G1 fighters. And so when we made the Cybertronian style jet, we pulled in a lot of those aspects. His name Needlenose. He has this, at least in this G1 version, because his G2 version was much more of like a jump jet.
Yeah.
Sorry, his not G2. He was a special repaint of a Combiners Wars character.
Oh yeah, the club version. Sorry, I was defaulting to a Cyberjet in my head.
Yep, those are the only 2 times that he's shown up as a toy. And so going back to that G1 version, he had the Delta wings, and he had a sort of very prominent nose and tail. And so we took some of those elements in, and as part of the redesign, showed what a Cybertronian trijet version of that alt mode is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's also kind of neat to run with the theme of the Decepticon jets having this sort of uniform Tetrajet silhouette that is then altered depending on the character.
There's also, looking ahead to Siege Part 2, there's a particular favorite of mine where we go with a non-fighter jet plane version of what that Tetrajet looks like.
Oh man, a Tetra truck.
No, it's a plane.
Oh.
But its G1 version was not a fighter jet.
Okay.
So yeah, this was really exciting to be able to do this. And then we made some updates to his bot mode to reflect these specific changes. Like his wings are, just for alignment for what the character look at a very detailed level looks like.
Mm-hmm.
This was super exciting for us. And it really represents sort of the pinnacle of us syncing up with Hasbro in the creation of this game.
Cool.
In that we are able to do where appropriate and with Hasbro's, the Transformers team's input. And I just want to give a shout out to some of the folks over there, Matt Clark and John Warden and Chris Nadeau from the various creative groups of visual writing and toy have been absolutely fantastic partners as part of this entire creation of War for Cybertron Siege.
Oh, and it speaks a lot to, I guess, like the confidence behind the game from the Transformers team side as well, like integrating this much without making it feel like the toy line or the card game is being utterly dependent on the other side. Syncing up with Siege without relying on having a whole bunch of pack-in cards as well or something like that. Also, I don't want to poke too much about it, but I'm very curious about this whole Siege 2 thing, but I'm guessing we're going to find out about that in a few months, several months.
Here, let me say this. Now that you know that it's not restricted to the toy line,
mm-hmm.
Imagine what we can do when we're working with Hasbro on a broader palette. And
so
we broke the toy line up, sort of kind of roughly in the story order, kind of taking input from that, taking input from the waves in which the toys are released. And then we got to show in both this set, in Siege 1 and Siege 2, some really cool things that sort of broaden the world of Siege.
Okay.
I mean, the military titles thing definitely feels like it's trying to flesh out, like, at least like a sort of broad ranking system.
Yeah. It's funny. That actually exists in the toy line. When you look, except it's done in glyph form, not in words. Like when you look at each Siege package, right on the front in the toy package, there's on the left hand side there's the name of the character, and then there's a glyph on top of it.
Right.
That glyph is these words.
So this is a bit of a specific toy line related question. I'm pretty sure this is a no, but in the packaging, they're also doing a whole lot of weird stuff with blacklight ink.
We did not take part in that.
No. Okay. You guys should poke them.
I'll put my blacklight flashlight back then.
You guys should poke them and get them to lend you some of that blacklight ink.
I had a very brief moment where I was going to say, like, oh, there's one card. And it's like, no, we did not.
There's one card. Quick, guys, get that card.
No, we did. There's no blacklight there's no hidden messages or symbology on the TCG.
Okay, I mean, if you were to sneak one in, I would definitely say, like, if you could sneak in some glyphs that, when translated, read RIP swap parts, that would be pretty cute. On that note, the one other thing about those titles, this is just where my brain goes. I'm sure you guys are already locked in on stuff, but at some point, it would be great if you guys could get some just really, like, unglamorous titles in there, like Janitor, or, I don't know, like on one of the mini cons or Battle Masters, like one of them that's maybe just like a broom or something like that. Like pick a character you really don't like and just give them...
How do I say these things without spoiling what stuff is?
I like how I say, can we have a broom? And it leads to, how do I not spoil things?
So I will say this. There's another card that we haven't gotten to yet, but a lot of characters who were previously Target Masters are now Battle Masters, right? Like,
right.
That is the new term for characters who were originally released there. And there are some cool things that we get to do with that.
All right. I hope, by the way, anyone listening to this who is maybe writing things down, like take note of that, so that, in 3 to 6 to 8 months, when this all like swings around, we can piece together what he's talking about. Because that's also one of my favorite things about these discussions we have. Just going to Needlenose specifically, going to his abilities, obviously his theme is, he's the first card I've seen that is really specifically like rewarding you for using or starred battle cards. Whereas like in Wave 2, the use of them often feels like something you have to accommodate. They are the focus. Your deck is making room for them, to the point where sometimes decks come together and you're just like, I would make room for a Star Battle card, but I like this deck layout as it is with these characters. This is a character who is straight up saying, no, please use Star Battle cards.
Right. Yeah, I think this will definitely aim more specifically for, like, instead of building the characters out and then I've got 2 stars of value left, specifically trying to build light on your character cards so that you've got space for star cards.
Yeah,
and that's very much the way we wanted to roll this out. Like, some abilities you roll out the new ability and the support stuff with it. But star cards are a fundamental part of the game. We just didn't introduce them in the first set, so we put them in the second set, let people get comfortable with them, and then we'll roll out things that interact directly with them over time. It's just an ongoing part of Transformers TCG now.
Yeah. And obviously, Needlenose is also saying, for the sake of future sets, and because we know about the Ultra Magnus armor, he's saying stars or cards that have exactly 1 star. Okay, the Flathead Screwdriver's out again. Are there a couple of multi-star cards in this set?
You know what? I don't want to spoil that one. I will say that Ultra Magnus armor you can only play on Autobot, so that's not going to interact with Needlenose in the game, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there are ways you could make that interact, but yes, there is the future of the Transformers TCG includes more 2-star battle cards.
And then only because of the battle card we're looking at and the way that kind of caps a long conversation we had over these last few months, is the door at all open to a 3-star battle card, or is that getting too ludicrous?
I think the door's open. It's certainly possible, but when you look at how they scale, I think that card would have to do something super, super big.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would probably have to be fairly intimidating to fall on the table, but if the door's open, that's the main thing I'm curious about. Looking forward to the 10-star battle card. Arm wrestle your opponent, and if you win the game. But yeah, Raider Needlenose, the one other thing about him I'll mention that I just noticed in the artwork, it's just a cute thing. I like that he has asymmetrical guns. It's a reference to the old toys Twin Target Masters.
Yep, so Zigzag was one of those guys, and we do not have those. Zigzag does not appear in this set.
Okay. I'm pretty sure someone was going to ask that in the comments, so that covers that. Aaron, anything about Needlenose? Anything else you want to throw in about him?
Did you actually say what he does?
Yeah, he's okay. Well, yeah, you flip to his alt mode, you can grab a 1-star card from your scrap pile into your hand, and then when you play one in his bot mode, you do 1 direct damage. Which is I'm already trying to think of ways to break it, but it's really just brainstorm.
Bolt for 4.
I mean, that's the basic way is bolt for 4.
Yeah, which is brutal. I've been trying to run a Slipstream grapple deck because they both like to just see lots and lots of pip colors. And once I got Grapple's ability to go off where I dropped 4 cards and hit someone dropped 4 pips of cards and hit someone for 4 damage, and that felt pretty good. It had a lot of setup. I'm into the idea of just having to play a card and doing that. But the bolt thing seems like solid. I think also playing Leap of Faith and also just pinging someone for 1 damage when you do it, that's really properly cheeky. I'm kind of into that. Because Leap of Faith is already pretty brutal to deal with. And it's like, by the way, bop, I hit one of your characters on the nose.
Right, like it's all about the value there, because you're already getting some extra value in terms of relative power with his star battle cards. And here, if you can start maximizing that, like his ability on his alt mode to get a specific star card back allows you to like not having to wait through the full deck cycle is super powerful.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I mean, basically if you have a deck set up where you don't really need to flip everybody after a couple turns, Needlenose can just chill out and 4 damage bolt people over and over again.
Exactly.
Which is pretty funny.
And I mean, especially because like you have him bot mode, bolt, flip, pick the bolt back up.
Yep.
Guess what's happening next turn?
Yep. And depending on how you set that deck up, you could even be doing something, running a chain brainstorm turn to do all of that potentially in 1 turn.
Gross.
And I also really appreciate that he's got 1 defense, so when that bullseye does fall on his face and no one's there to help him, you can get that really satisfying just like punch to the jaw.
Right.
Like this.
He has a very specific function in the game, and that is not providing defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just going from that, let's go into the last character before we hit that battle card. We've got one of the battle masters. This is Raider Nightstick. I just noticed he's a specialist battle master. That explains that extra star. I was curious about that. And with the battle masters, just in brief, like they start in bot mode. When they get KO'd, then they flip to upgrade mode. I have a quick question because I just was curious about this. This really is a rules roundup one, but I'll just throw it at you. When the upgrade leaves the battlefield, goes into the KO area.
It's KO mode.
Okay.
You can't flip it back.
Okay. So you can't I still function that thing back into existence.
That's correct.
All right. That was a big question that me and a bunch of people had was, are these guys infinitely recurable after death?
No. They are not infinitely recurable.
Because these guys also, like, if that's the case, that suddenly makes Wave 2's card, that utility that protects your other upgrades, that suddenly makes a whole lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
That's correct. That is a great card if you're playing Battlemech.
Yeah. But yeah, Nightstick, he's got that kind of Battle Master stat line. I don't think they all have the same stat line unless I'm missing something, but it's around the range of like 261. Like that's a Battle Master stat line as far as we've seen.
That is, I guess, average for Battle Masters.
Yeah. Okay. But with the bonus of being a specialist, which is pretty darn good. And then he turns to the Black Bleam. It already happened.
What? The what?
It already had you know what? In City of Heroes, there was a thing about Bleam. Anyway, sorry, that was Freem, not Bleam. Bleam was an emulator. But the Black Beam Blast, that's really hard to say.
I thought you were the alliteration guy. Picking perfect fix, pal.
I heard you stumble on that one.
I don't know what you're talking about. That was Skype issues. That's not...
Is there going to be like an organized play prize if someone can say Black Beam Blaster like 14 times in a row? Like,
I don't know, but the next time I see you guys in person, we're definitely going to have a Black
yeah.
A Black Beam Blaster off.
All I'm going to say is I hope everyone's noticing how Aaron's just quietly staying out of this. Because he knows his limits.
Yeah. I just stir it a little bit and I just step back.
So the Black Beam Blaster is a +2 attack, +1 defense weapon when the upgraded character attacks, and you flip at least 2 black pips. Your opponent has to scrap a card of their choice from their hand. The black pips, by the way, this is where we can briefly mention yet another pip color. I loved that your guys' note immediately got in front of the idea of a new pip color literally every single wave, and how that would not jive with the limitations of the basic color wheel.
Yes. No, we are building up to the status quo.
Yeah.
We are not just randomly shooting off new pip icons because we need to fill space. That's not the way we're doing it. We want to aggregate onto a point of comfortableness, and we're pretty close.
And it fills in a gap I had been noticing in the game of Pierce. Pierce was always sort of confined to being a secondary bonus, if that makes any sense. Like, rarely did I see a deck where it was like the deck is Pierce. It was more that Pierce was there to either support the weaker characters, Pierce was there to mess with Jazz, Pierce was there to chip away, but like Pierce pips suddenly makes me think about Pierce a whole lot more, in that it's not entirely dependent on inherent abilities or upgrades.
Yep.
And that's pretty cool. Like I was telling Aaron before the recording, having said all that, like, I'm only just starting to adjust to green pips. I'm not even sure what black pips are in practice yet.
In psychology yet.
But it's fascinating, and I like that Pierce is getting some love, because I like Pierce, even though it's by far the weirdest rule it's the weirdest simple rule to explain to a new player, I found.
Yes. And that's one of the reasons why we didn't put these pips out in the first couple.
But yeah, the Black Beam Blaster is definitely enjoying Pierce. And it seems like it's also like, whenever I see something that lets you discard a card, my brain immediately says, oh, it's one of Shockwave's friends. Even though now we have 2 Shockwaves.
It's still Shockwave's friends.
Yeah.
It is still Shockwave's friend. I mean, I'm a Wave 1 Shockwave boy. I'm actually quite stoked that you can run double Shockwaves.
Yes.
That makes me happy.
Double Shockwaves is pretty fun.
I like that it feels like whenever you guys have the chance to accommodate a deck of just one guy, the star counts always end up aligning just right.
If it's possible, we do like to do that because it is a nice little nod to people for whom that character is their favorite, like the triple Bumblebee deck or the double Primes. But well, not that double Primes, the actual double Optimus Primes.
Yeah,
right.
But yeah, it's a nice little thing that we do where we can, but it's not an overriding. We would not like specifically try and force that to happen if it's not now.
Oh yeah. I just like that it exists because I mean, once you actually like, I've run the Wave 1 Bumblebee deck, and it's a fun deck. Although like once you run it, I find like the one thing you notice is the gimmick is that they all fit in the deck. There's not really like this unified, cross character synergy that's extremely overt outside of they're all cars.
In general, those are never going to be the best decks because characters tend to want to interact with other characters. Dissimilar things to unite to a better purpose than have three guys that are basically the same, similar spaces in the game.
Although shouts out to TCG Rollout, I am still a proponent of double Starscreams. That was one of the most surprisingly fun, kind of dumb decks I've ever run.
I agree. That deck is a lot of fun.
It's a real goofy deck that it does really well until about the third act of a match with somebody, and then suddenly it's like, oh wait a second, my Starscreams are dying. It feels almost in character, that a double Starscream deck would hit hard out of the gate and then eventually lose. I still love it, but Nightstick, Aaron. Once again, I'll pass over to you. You got anything you want to throw in about Nightstick or the what did he turn into, Aaron? How do you
the Black Beam Blaster?
Look at you show off. Look at this show off, friggin' engineering technician helicopter man saying all the fancy words.
Precision in language is important. No, I like seeing more things like weapons that give a bonus to defense, or when you have things in other slots that protect the other way.
Yep.
To add like value or different ways to build. I think it'd be interesting to see armor that gives a bonus attack that is off of something like this as well, that just it gives a different flavor and kind of feel to it, on top of just being like more shooting, I guess.
Yep, and that's part of one of the reasons why he costs a 6-star as opposed to 5, and also that's very specifically why this card design was done with Nightstick as the character, because Black Beam weaponry in Transformers always has had a disorienting effect as part of it. And we represented that two ways. One with the discard.
Oh, okay.
If you can get the Black Beam to actually hit, the double Black Pips.
Right.
And then secondly, it provides defense, and that's one way we sort of interpret that disorienting effect.
Okay. Cool.
I know it's in character and all that, but also I think it's funny that he is the Black Beam Blaster that reacts to Black Pips, and I was wondering if we could also have the Blue Beam Bazooka and the Orange Ray Rifle.
I will get Ken Nagel on that ASAP.
Okay. It can be the Red Ray Rifle if we want to keep all the alliteration going.
I mean, we did not make up the name Black Beam Blaster. That's existed in Transformers lore for...
I know, but it aligns so perfectly in a very blunt way with the mechanics. It would be just funny if we could...
It truly does.
The Blue Beam Bazooka would... Sorry, you know what? I'm gonna erase all the words. The Blue Bomb Bazooka would make my day.
I got two more things about Nightstick. Nightstick is also another character that has been pulled from that way back in the day, and has been given a little bit of a Cybertronian redesign. He was originally the target master partner for Cyclonus, and I just want to mention Cyclonus is not appearing.
All right.
If we're gonna if and when you see Cyclonus, he'll be done more on theme with how you imagine Cyclonus might show up. But this particular he was so right for the introduction of Black Pips that we pulled him in, absent his target master partner. Second thing I want to point out is who's wielding him.
Yeah, that's like a just distinct enough arm shape that I'm not sure.
I've actually wondered, because I haven't seen much discussion in any of the battle masters in their weapon mode.
Yeah, I mean, I was eyeballing one of those hands, but I think one of the first Autobot one that was revealed, it was kind of like it was just a monocolored hand, and I couldn't really discern it. This one has like some rounded forearm detail inside of a boxy shell, which feels like a very toyetic oriented detail. And immediately, the problem is the first person I thought of was Cyclonus, because G1 Cyclonus had a turbine forearm inside of a box forearm.
I'm sitting there looking at it thinking Astro Train, but like the windows down the side. Sorry.
I'm going to remain mum on this whole thing.
Okay.
I just want to spark the discussion. I mean,
boy.
Aimless is pretty obvious. Aimless is being wielded by Starscream. Because we get his wing and body in there. Some of these guys, we only see the forearm of the body. Pay attention to that.
I see the top of that. I think like space shuttle tiles, that blue-white color scheme. The lines as the windows.
That wrist cuff also looks, again, looks very Galvatron-y, but given the line of reasoning for Cyclonus, that to me would nix Galvatron from the discussion as well.
I will say Galvatron is also not appearing in this.
All right, confirmed. It's not Galvatron's forearm. Oh boy. Y'all who are listening to this had better start dissecting all of these forearms in these Battlemaster reveals.
Yes, none of them are random.
Oh man.
However, I believe some of them are characters that only appear to.
Oh, that's a wrinkle, because now there's this entire Siege Wave 2 that could... Oh, boy.
Yeah. We need to get the Masterpiece level, early Masterpiece level toy deductions going.
There are some people who are just savants for, like, Transformers forearms, and I'm not even really joking when I say that.
No, I agree. I guess there's a third wrinkle, is that some of the characters have had light redesign to be, bring them into Cybertronian form, and that generally affects the alt mode a lot more than affects the bot mode, but there's some of that in there too. And now that I've completely said all this disorienting information, I am really curious to see what people get.
Because what I'll say is maybe we should all be looking at that rounder inner forearm, and maybe the boxy stuff on top of it, those plates, are a result of a Cybertronian vehicle mode redesign.
That's the red herring?
Oh, there's gonna be Facebook threads. There, you know what? It's not that there's gonna be. It's there better be, or I'm gonna indignantly glare at my monitor because I can't do anything about the Facebook group. I just participate. But that leaves us one more spoiler card, and this is a battle card, and this one. Before we even say what it is, it's a star card, and this one, I alluded to this before. This closes another loop. Here is our 3-pip battle card that utilizes the entire space on the upper right corner.
Yep, we designed the 3 spaces for a reason.
This seems like this is the way my brain works. My brain works in the direction of what will support my girl Slipstream. So this seems like a super Slipstream friendly card. It'd be a weird deck to build entirely around 3 copies of this in Slipstream, but I'll do it. The card is Fuel Cash. It's a 3-pip card. It's an action. You reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. If they include at least these 3 pips, put them all into your hand. Otherwise, scrap them. So my first read of this was incorrect. But when I first read this card, all I saw was if they include the 3 pips, which made me say, there are more of these 3-pip cards? But that means if they include at least among the 3 cards, the 3-pip colors. Right?
That's correct. So you must flip inside of those, in your reveal of those 3 cards. In order to put them all in your hand, you must have shown a white pip, an orange pip, and a blue pip in any combination with any other number of pips, but there must be those 3.
And so, like Aaron was mentioning before, like this is another card that's also going to really reward mixing your pip colors.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. Grapple, as you noted, does like this card.
And also, this feels like we are in the long game. This feels like in the shadows, puppeteering all of this from back in Wave 1. Cybertonium bow and shock absorbers are just sitting on their thrones, awaiting their day.
And that is something that we very much like to do in mind. We like to push things out that encourage you to go back and look at cards that you have already collected and to be able to create those new interactions. And we do it for a bunch of reasons. We do it because it increases the number of combinations of cool things you can do. We do it because it continuously gives value to older cards. Like they're yours, they're in your collection, they're not going away. and we put things that say, hey, oh, this old card now has new life because it has a new environment, and that is something we like to do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I have there are basically 3 wave 1. I have this wave 1 pitchfork of these 3 cards that I always like. Every time we see these spoilers, I kind of glance back at them. One of them collectively, I treat them as one card just because they're so alike. Is Cybertonian Bow and Shock Absorbers. Mm-hmm. The other 2 points, Computer Sabotage. It's a card that's a card I keep looking at, thinking like someday you're going to suddenly make so much sense to me. And then the third one is a character, which is Deadlock. Those are my three points basically I'm always glancing at. I have a quick flathead screwdriver question based off this card. Is this the only 3-pip card, can you say?
Again, I don't want to.
No worries. I have to wiggle the flathead screwdriver, or the flathead screwdriver industry will complain.
It's not the last 3-pip. It's not the only time you will ever see a 3-pip card.
Yeah, I got the feeling.
But the container where pips go in the upper right is 3 spaces potential for a reason, and that's why you see things like Grapple, who are 4 colors.
And I guess that leaves Slipstream in. I mean, the SDCC Gen Con pack is always going to be in a weird position, but that does leave Slipstream in the position of she's able to solely benefit from flipping 1 copy of this, if I'm remembering her card right, at least. She needs 3 different colors to appear in her attack flip for that robot mode effect.
She does do well with this card. That is correct.
Okay. I'm really happy to see more Pip combos, especially with characters like Needlenose, implying that there's going to be just a whole lot more declared room, I guess is how I'd put it, for star cards. It's exciting. Also, obviously, if I'm running Metroplex, someday there might be enough of these that it really makes sense to just run Ancient Wisdom, and I always forget the other one. I always call it just the Ancient Wisdom combo to pull them into the deck.
I mean, you certainly could do that. And I've been wondering if, I did not find a good version of the Metroplex deck that has that.
Yeah,
but I think that it may have that. I want to talk about Metroplex for a second because it's really interesting. Wave 2 upgrades to the Metroplex deck had really benefited that deck well. And
me and Aaron felt that firsthand at a box tourney we were at in LA.
Yeah, had I had more time in LA, I would have built an Acid Storm deck just to say no to all the Metroplex decks.
Because on Friday at TFCon there were 2 box tourneys and 2 separate Metroplex players took them.
Yep.
And I know for a fact because I was the second place in one of them. And this is the terrifying thing about Wave 2 Metroplex. I spent the whole game thinking I was winning until literally the final turn when a clutch force field suddenly cost me the game because I realized, wait a second, my whole team disappeared over the course of those 4 ultimates that happened. It was very frightening.
Yeah, it has been I would say one of the few points of frustration that, from our point of view, is people have doubted the strength of Metroplex and to some degree Devastator, and we knew that they were good out of the box. They were much more competitive when you tuned those decks, and it is gratifying to see people putting in that time to play test these upgraded versions of the decks and do well with them.
Oh yeah, I mean Metroplex. I don't do this on purpose. I'm about to say I had the deck stack against him. In that, a lot of people see the giant card and think, is this just a set designed to sell a giant card? And it was a real pleasant discovery to find out that no, he's not only a very viable character, but he's an entirely unique play style as well. And having run some Devastator games, Devastator I think is even more. The idea of anyone doubting Devastator after playing it once is odd to me because you just have to run that. You can run the pre-con once. You probably will discover, you get the tower to 9 really fast, and then you put together your tower 9, tower 10 Devastator, and even if you don't win the game, it's an incredibly good feeling.
There's that big womp womp moment when Devastator combines and you just remove a whole bunch of damage.
Yeah. I'm still trying to learn Devastator because his rhythm is just so odd to me, and I have the tower thing. My brain has a lot of trouble keeping up with multiple simultaneous mechanics, I've discovered, when I'm running Devastator, and I start thinking, I get worried with how I start snapping a little bit in stating what I'm doing, but I think to myself, like, I'm not actually mad about the game. I'm just in a very intense, focused mindset because I'm trying to remember to do all of these things to keep the tower going.
Devastator is a very deck to play. And it's funny because a bunch of the complexity looks like it's coming from the tower, and there definitely is that element there. But there's a significant amount of complexity that comes from being able to play 6 characters.
Oh, absolutely. I've changed my initial thoughts on how to tweak his deck just from playtesting and realizing, like, you know, the number of times I would simply need to swing in with 3 characters at once because my opponent is tapped out. And how much that changes my expectations of what's going to happen. Or another odd one, I found that when my opponent wasn't able to knock out my Constructicons one after another, it actually would flummox me a bit because I was so relying on that to build the tower that I would get stuck for a few turns because I'd sit there looking at all these surviving Constructicons. We're ready to combine, but my tower's at 6, and I sit there saying, I want it to be higher, and then I'd actually get a little bit lost for a couple turns.
5 wide and 6 wide teams gain a significant amount of power just from that number of characters, and they also add a ton of decision making points to the game that can make the game a little bit more complex than your average, even more than your average game.
Oh yeah, and I'll just throw it out there. Like, anyone who's listening to this who plays like current standard or modern Magic the Gathering is probably laughing their head off about me talking about my, I can barely keep up with these 2 mechanics. But it's a fun exercise for me because I also feel like it's getting easier every time I run the deck, and I'm enjoying that.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, get in my deck reps. It's one of my favorite pieces of lingo I learned. Just quickly going back to Fuel Cache though, Aaron, anything else you want to throw in about Fuel Cache or just the 3-pip notion?
I'm glad to see the 3 pips filled out.
Yeah, it's satisfying.
Yeah. Very early on, seeing that space and being like, ooh. So getting to see the payoff is exciting. And this, like, if again, building strongly balanced, and especially if you've got, matrices of leadership, how do you pluralize that? Where you've already got 2 colors on it. You could have a white, green, and then whatever else, and a whole lot of card advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, it would be Matrix of Leaderships, because Matrix of Leadership is the name of the object that is the card. So you have 3 Matrix of Leaderships.
Yeah, but Leaderships is
I know, it sounds terrible. That's why I kind of like it.
But it's definitely something that I like, the action that makes you think about the design space around it and what you're doing, not just like, I'm going to play a fuel cache so I can draw a fuel cache. Well, that doesn't actually get you anything.
Yep.
And also just the notion that 3 pips really is a thing. Also, as of this wave, there are 5 pip colors.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And like when I was making the first version of my Slipstream grapple deck, it was actually really fun when I was just saying to myself, I will just make a stack of every multi-pip card. And with wave 2, realizing just how many of those there are. Granted that the first version of that deck ran really badly because I didn't actually think about the cards. I was just thinking about the pips, and then I got stuck a few times. But it's been a fun one I've been working on. Like, I don't think it's going to be a brutal, double primes killer of a deck, but it's just very fun.
I've been enjoying playing grapple.
Yeah. And also, in our local group, we always meet new people who we then can explain Solar Storm Grappel to, which is a thing from... I forgot if we talked to you about it, but that was the name he had when he was released as a toy in like 2011, I believe.
We had the Grappel discussion because remember we were talking about how Grapple was my favorite character as a kid.
Yeah, yeah. Someone was asking us about why we keep saying Grappel and Solar Storm when it's not written on the cards. We'd explain the thing to them, and then they'd say, "Wait, so they put Solar Storm in front, but then also changed his name to Grappel?" And we're like, "Yeah, sometimes things get a bit nuts." But yeah, those are our card spoilers. So I'll just say right here.
I got one more bit about Fuel Cache.
All right.
So all of the battle cards in War for Cybertron Siege 1 and 2 are brand new art created by Wazi.
Oh yes, excellent.
Okay.
And so, for fans of IDW comic art will return in future sets. Here, somewhat because of timing, somewhat because we wanted to flex our art muscle here and make some very specific stuff. We did all the battle card art, and in this particular piece, sort of just like hinting at the world we're living in. You know, it's a really terrible sign. The Autobots have to hide Energon and sort of graffiti their little like rebel Autobot symbol on the wall.
Just throwing their tags up.
Yeah. You know, this world of Cybertron is not in a happy place right now.
Yeah. Well, and just a quick question bouncing off that. I'm not sure how much it's in your purview, but once the set is out, once the cards are all spoiled and then released, is it going to be cool for the artists who worked on them to pop up and go like, "Hey, I worked on this card and this card"?
Absolutely.
All right, then I'd like to encourage the artists who worked on them to please pop up and say, "I worked on this card and this card," so I can get going on making a chart.
So if you look at the credits document, the credits doc, we list the folks who worked on art. We just don't put it on the cards because that's sort of how Transformers does it, and we are Transformers.
Oh yeah. I like on a fan end, like my goal, I don't have the wherewithal to do it myself because it's like it's the kind of thing that I would happily delegate to someone. But I'm hoping that the fan base can put together an Excel sheet and start just matching up, like, you know, for instance, the IDW panels, like this card is this panel from this issue with this artist, etc. That's something I would love to see on like a fan wiki. It's something that I absolutely would not be able to do myself because I know that I don't have the wherewithal or the willpower, but if it could just manifest somehow, I'd be so happy.
I can say that the battle card art done by Volta Creations, now a studio of Keyword, and under the art direction of Sarah Pettery-Duchier.
Oh yeah, no, Sarah's good people. She's also very good at Twitter.
Yeah,
and definitely like worst case, I don't know. Maybe I'll poke her on Twitter. Go like, hey, I have a Google Doc. Can you look at it?
And I'm pretty sure she did some of the battle cards.
Oh, I'm really hyped about that. I love Sarah's art. Till All Are One is personally my favorite piece of Transformers fiction ever made. And Sarah's art in it was a huge part of it. So I'm always happy to get more Sarah Pettery-Duchier Transformers art.
I am a big fan of Sarah's art. So and her art direction was spot on.
Oh yeah, I mean, even when we get packaging art on these cards, like the current state of Transformers packaging art is they're all like paintings, and I'm really happy to get those outside of the realm of toy packaging.
Yeah.
Like even when Wave 1 came out, like one of my biggest fist pumps before I even played the game was finally physical copies of all of that art Marcelo did way back for that mobile game that kind of just disappeared.
And there's plenty of Marcelo art in here. Marcelo is back doing character cards. Dan is back. We've got a bunch of people.
Excellent,
Nice.
excellent. Now, Marcelo is one of my favorite art folks. I'm really happy he's getting so much work, relevant, past or future to the game.
Yeah. The Wizards art director for Transformers, Shanna Duncan, just showed me 3 pieces that Marcelo just sent for Wave 4, Siege 2. Always happy to see his stuff coming.
That's excellent. I mean, the logistics of it are always crazy and often unrealistic, but I'll always throw out there, like, if someday in the future it is possible to like assemble a saleable art book of a lot of this stuff, I know a lot of people would be right into it. The nature of Transformers, I think, makes it difficult, but I like to just put the notion out there.
Heard and understood.
And yeah, those are our 4 spoiler cards. That takes us into the back end of this little podcast. Aaron, I want to pass over to you for a second. Have you got anything else you want to say about our spoiler cards, or anything you want to just throw in about what you've been seeing for Wave 3?
No, I've been excited again by Wave 3 for the more ways that things are opening up. Not the Battle Master, the other small cards that I'm pulling the blank.
Micromasters.
The Micromasters right now. Wow, it's a long day. I like seeing direct tap effects.
Oh yeah, the tap abilities
as well. that is something that I think is interesting that will again change kind of the rhythm of that play, like what that Thrust RC Blitzwing deck does. Of he's there, but he's not doing what you think he is. He's just stacking other numbers on. So
yeah, exactly. The tap abilities on Micromasters add in this very interesting dimension. They all cost you something. At the very least, they cost you not attacking with the Micromaster, right?
Right.
During that cycle of tapping and untapping. They allow us, because they have that kind of inherent cost, to do some cool things.
And I had a quick question. The tap ability, because it's basically now it's one of the things you can do in the pre-attack phase, where you get one per turn.
Correct.
I can't remember if you guys actually answered this already. Ready for action. Does that allow a second tap ability, or are they a hard, like, just one per turn?
So it is one per turn. So you could ready for action and then attack. So you could tap a Battle Master and then ready for action, and because you can do those in action in any order you choose. And then at the end of the turn, attack with it, the Battle Master. That's totally cool, but you can't tap it a second time for your use tap ability.
Okay, yeah, because like when one is playing, multiple upgrades, multiple actions, those are off of cards or abilities that are quite literally saying play an action, play an upgrade. It's like untapping a character does not inherently imply you can do another tap action.
No, it does not.
All right, awesome.
It's also one of the reasons why a swap parts going away and is not a 1-to-1 replacement with Ray.
Yeah. That's what I figured. I wanted to clarify it. Also, again, being wizards, it's fun to just see the tap symbol.
Hey, we get to use it. It was really cool for us to design a way into the game for us to use the tap symbol.
So now we just need to get a battle. Maybe I'm not going to say whether or not one's in there because I'm not sure if that's in an upcoming spoiler. But this means we're one step closer to having the Transformers TCG's Tim. If we can get someone with a tap ability to do 1 damage, then we're set. We've got Tim.
Oh, I can't remember if we have somebody who does that in any of the upcoming sets.
If you have someone who does it and it's, or if you haven't done it yet, is there any way to make Prodigal a military title that they can have?
So we have to run that one by Hasbro.
It's within the purview of a Wizard's property.
You just make it so that's in the Cybertronian behind. It's the one card where the Cybertronian's not the card name.
Yeah. It's just Prodigal.
Sort of. I just looked through the set list. The answer is sort of.
Okay. I mean, it'll be up to us, the fans, to make sure to refer to that character as Prodigal, then military title, then their name.
No, just that just becomes Tim. I don't care who the Transformer is.
You got to leave the name. You got to leave the title in. It's gonna be General Tim or Private Tim.
Yeah.
So let's put a star on this conversation and come back to it. Character is revealed, because I absolutely want to hear you say that full thing with the character's name.
I'm so hyped to say the full thing with the character's name. I'll keep an eye out. Going into the back end of this, I did want to bring up briefly, because I bring it up all the time because I am located here, so I like to touch base on this. We recently, through our retailers, got some Canadian release dates for not just Wave 2, but also Devastator and the new starter deck. And I wanted to give a quick thanks for getting the new... I mean, obviously, it's not like you guys are personally moving stuff into place. There's a whole lot of factors at work, but when we all...
I mean, it takes a long time because we have to walk it up. Some of us needed to get passports.
Yeah, I know. And passports take a couple weeks, but seeing the new starter deck be one of those things that are coming out in Canada on that May 31st date, roughly, is suddenly putting an enormous amount of optimism into the Canadian community that we quite literally had been losing for the last couple of months.
Yeah, we heard you and we saw that. There's been a lot of speculation as to why does it take a longer time to release in Canada, and I mean, there are details I can't go into, but like people have pretty much, there are a few people who have identified it, and they have to do with language and import restrictions.
Yeah,
and I think we're getting better at it.
Yeah, I mean, I've laid out to some folks that, like, my understanding of just factories as someone who pokes people for info a lot in the toy side of things is that factories tend to fall under what one could refer to as trade secrets that literally are just not shared to the public, and that's, full stop.
Correct.
But seeing that the second starter is something that is going to be hitting here with Wave 2 is like, we were all kind of joking about, like, hey, maybe we'll get Wave 3 this year, but now it seems like, it's the optimism today really spiked in the local area.
Fantastic, because you are absolutely going to see Wave 3 this year, and that's not a euphemism for December.
Yeah. I mean, we'll find out once the date is something that can be shared. And I mean, outside of this podcast, I have theories on how those dates come about and how they are not readily available months ahead. But that's just my theories based on stuff that I think would then eventually become trade secrets. So I don't want to start going into that with Drew sitting right here. That's a flathead screwdriver that's a Phillips head screwdriver thing. That's a bit too violent. But also one other thing going off of that, the new starter deck.
Yes, Bumblebee versus Megatron, releasing in Canada 31st of May and in the US May 3rd.
Yeah. How are we going to see a deck list for that soon, do you think?
I think we can get one of those up on pretty soon.
All right. I have questions about the contents of that, but a deck list would basically answer most of those questions. So if a deck list is on the way, I don't really want to poke too much about it.
Yeah, we'll definitely show a deck list at some point before launch.
All right, awesome.
Cool.
I guess just quickly, like, is it a deck that's going to be splittable like the first starter deck, or is it going for a different approach?
So it's even more designed to be splittable than the first. So we did a couple of things with Bumblebee versus Megatron, and the reason why so originally the second starter deck was going to come out day and date with Rise of the Combiners, but we saw people's feedback that was players and retailers and distributors, all three, from the first starter deck, the Autobot starter set, and so we made some fairly radical changes to the starter deck, which pushed it out in the pipeline. The first one was we included Decepticon characters. The second one was that we included a printed rules document.
Good.
Rather than just pointing directly to online learn to play videos. The third change was that we emphasized the nature of its splittability into two decks. One of the things that people who were teaching others gave us as feedback pretty regularly is that there was no clear way, to split the Autobot starter deck. Yes, most people were like, you should probably get Bumblebee and I'll get Optimus. And then after that, there was sometimes you got Ironhide and sometimes you didn't. So by having two Autobots and two Decepticons, we kind of killed two birds with one stone there. And then the deck itself would be more easily split as well. And then the last thing that we did is it has a lower price point than the Autobot starter set.
Okay. No, I hadn't seen any of the price points yet, so that's news to me.
So in the United States, the Autobot starter set had an MSRP of $14.99. Bumblebee versus Megatron is $12.99.
Oh, excellent. I guess this is one quick question that is sort of deck list related, but I'm just curious, because the Autobots and Decepticons kind of come out to equal star counts. Is it basically, if one were to run that as one deck, is it a 24-star deck?
That one, let's wait till the deck list comes out.
Okay. I will say I am really excited about a deck that is hard oriented towards being split, because I did a few demos. I ran a few demos of the game at TFCon. The weekend after, I went back to my hometown in Victoria, BC, for Capital City Comic Con, and ended up running a lot of demos there because the folks who were going to be demoing were shorted all of their starter sets by their distributor.
Thank you for doing that. Stepping in, by the way.
Well, basically, me and three friends who were all equipped to play the game showed up and said, "Hey, where's the Transformers TCG stuff at?" They said, "Oh, sorry, we can't give you any demos. We only have boosters." And we said, "Oh, no, we play." "What do you mean you don't have any starters?" They explained the situation, and we said, "Do you mind if we just sit at your table and play and give demos if people ask?" And they said, "Yeah." And so I ran the Autobot starter deck a whole lot of times. I found a decent storytelling thread to do. It was just cars versus trucks. It led to decently balanced games if I threw them a little bit. But having a really clear delineated Autobot Decepticon thing, I think is going to, the storytelling part of it, oddly really hooks people in. And being able to do that more clearly, I think will...
You're absolutely right. We saw that as well.
Yeah.
I've taught a bunch of people using that, and it was necessary for us to make those upgrades before releasing the second starter, and that's why it was a little bit delayed past Rise of the Combiners.
Okay.
Yeah, like I like in case people are wondering, or I'll just throw it out here because it's my little story and I want to share it. It was basically I would sit someone down and I'd just say, "All right, quick question: cars or trucks?" And if they said what, I'd just say, just do you like cars or trucks? Some of them would look at the table and catch on. Whatever the case, I'd say, all right, here's the story. Optimus Prime and Ironhide are just chilling out, talking about how much cooler trucks are than cars. And it was really rude because, like, Ironhide is, one of Optimus's right-hand men, but, like, Bumblebee is one of his left-hand men, and he was standing right there. And they were talking about him like he wasn't even there. So Bumblebee went to get Red Alert, told Red Alert all about what they were saying about cars. Red Alert's a little bit kooky. So basically, they're driving in to learn these trucks a thing or two. And the nature of Red Alert, of course, being a glass cannon character, eventually would lead to someone equipping him with grenade launcher and always going for Optimus Prime 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, because he's talking trash.
So then I would just tell them when they hit Optimus Prime for an enormous amount of damage that I would always say, all right, so Red Alert just delivered a lariat to Optimus Prime's face and flipped him over. Optimus Prime is unconscious. You just decked the leader of the Autobots in the face. Good job. And people enjoyed that, I found. It's a very a very storytelling friendly game, especially in demos. So I mean, it's a lot more obvious when it's Autobots versus Decepticons, but I gotta think of some really low but intense stakes for that fight.
I think that was a great way to just do the setup for the percent.
It's a lot of fun, especially when a lot of kids are looking at the game. But then I also had one kid. He had to be maybe 10 years old at most, with a very smart fedora. And when I said cars or trucks, he said, I want to pick this character and this character. And I was like, you sure? And he's like, no, I play these games. and I thought, oh, that's cute. This kid he plays these games.
So you just turn around, take off the gloves. All right, what are we doing now?
So I ran kid gloves on until we got 3 turns in, and I sat there saying, this kid knows how to play these games. So I decided, you know what? I had a perfect double KO turn set up to take out both of his characters at once, and I decided, he'll probably appreciate this. So I wiped his board in one turn with a plasma burst and an attack, and he completely dug it and wanted to play 3 more games. So I made the right call there. I didn't make someone cry. Cool. But yeah, that kid was like, no, I play Magic. And I thought for a second maybe he was a little bit, full of himself. But no, turns out he actually just plays Magic. That hat was not a joke. That was a very talented young man. But that, like I said, that solves my my remaining check marks. I wanted to talk about Canada. I wanted to talk about the new starter deck. Yeah, I guess we're rolling through spoiler season. You all over in Seattle must be enjoying watching the speculation.
I'm loving it. So one last question for you guys. Okay, so who do you hope that we have bringing into Siege who is or believe to not be in the toilet line?
I'm going to not say my usual answer.
I know your usual answer.
Yeah, but alternate art is the thing now with those promo cards you guys are doing. We can just do a, nice pink and turquoise Supreme. That's a thing on the table, I'm sure. Yep. I'll pass over to Aaron actually to go first here.
Sure you are. Thanks.
Generously, I will pass the baton over to Aaron. I will say I'm doing it in a somewhat stilted and slow way to give him time to think. I'm trying to do him favors.
Not in Siege. I'd like to go back to see some Headmasters maybe, but
that seems like a completely separate wave.
Yeah, that's an entirely different gimmick. So
I think that would be a separate wave. So what I'm asking is if you wanted us to bring a character into the sort of Cybertronian look and feel of Siege, who would that be?
I got one. He's niche. So I'll say that up front. I'm actually quite a big fan of Rapido. I almost said Ricochet. Rapido was a European character who has a gorgeous color scheme of turquoise and red. He is a really cool sports car. He got some interesting characterization in Transformers Club Fiction, but Rapido is it's a childhood toy of mine from the European era of G1. And he's one of those cards where, much like Flame War turned out to just be an amazing jack of all trades 5-star character, but Rapido is another character where on site I would probably just try to to bull force Rapido into decks, so I could say I'm running a Rapido deck.
Okay.
That's what I'll throw out there.
Huh. Oh, he's one of the accelerators.
Yeah.
That was one of those huhs I don't know how to take. I don't know how to take that.
I did a quick look because I did not know. I was not familiar with Rapido offhand.
Those colors, though, right? That combination of greeny blue and red is a thing.
Yeah, that sure is. Wow.
The pink translucent highlights are important and do need to be there, but
wow, indeed. Wow, that's some Generation 2 color scheme.
Yeah. Euro G1 is the true Generation 2.
And there was a BotCon version of Rapido too.
Yeah. With a bunch of other G2 or Euro colored dudes.
Like me and three people are the
Pyro
ones
in there too?
Yeah, Pyro was in there.
With what was it? The Delusions of Being Prime or whatever?
Yeah, at the time, me and a couple people were joking that the G2 BotCon set is full of European G1, but then me and those couple people are the only ones who really slam a hand on the table saying it's Euro G1, not G2. So we're in the minority.
All right. I don't think you're going to be happy.
The fact that you looked him up makes me happy, is what I'll say. I've seeded. If I can seed at least the notion of both Rapido and Omega Spreem, SPREEM, into the minds of the folks working on this game, I feel like I've done my job.
Okay.
How about a punch counter punch?
That's an interesting one. Stay tuned.
Okay.
Oh, I have another question that just reminded me. It's a total stay tuned question, but I should probably ask it.
Go for it. Pull out the screwdriver.
Okay, flathead screwdriver. It's not a Phillips head, it's a flathead. It's a simple one.
Well, I mean, the Phillips head screwdriver is not particularly useful for opening doors or...
No, the Phillips head screwdriver is for just... That's for violent home invasion.
That's the stabby one.
That's the one that we don't use when we talk to people that we like. Flathead screwdriver question. Are there any folding cards in Wave 3?
Are there any folding cards in Wave 3? No, there are no folding cards in Wave 3.
All right. That will answer several questions.
Yes,
hopefully.
It does. It does answer several questions. For example, there are no triple changers in Wave 3, and there are no combiners in.
They would need to be folding cards in order to be those. Definitely.
That's correct.
Folding cards still on the table, though, at some point?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. That satisfies me.
That will be a occasional thing that Transformers TCG dips back into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not an every set thing, but it is hey, that's a tool in our toolbox when we need to represent characters in the best way, like combiners or triple changers or other cool ways we could use 3-sided cards.
Yeah.
We will use that tool.
I will say in casual show-offs of the card game, the folding card tech on showing that to somebody has invariably gotten a wait, what the? Like, go from being like, okay, whatever, it's another way, huh?
Yep. And there's been a lot. I see this a lot. I see it on your boards. I see it on the group. There's a lot of discussion about, is it worth it to have these different size cards and the folding cards, and the success that we've seen from this game in a world that is crowded with card games. That kind of reaction where people stop and look, and where people say, "That's different. I didn't imagine that." The answer has been pretty definitively yes. It was absolutely worth it.
Oh yeah, I mean, as far as like eye-catching, it's without a doubt a combiner coming together makes people playing Commander Pods on the other side of the room all kind of at least glance at us before they go back to politicizing amongst themselves. And also, I feel like whenever the question at least with Wave 2, so it's the one time the question came up of what do we do about the durability, or do I want to keep folding the things? The players eventually figure out the way to just have them as static cards, be it with a sliding thing on top or whatever. And so I think it kind of solves itself. And like in Wave 3, technically there is a new physical thing in Wave 3 for Transformers, which is a a standard size card with a holographic side. I mean, that's not new at all in the field of card games, but for the game it is.
Right.
Which leads, like, I have this speculation that I'll just throw into the wind. Is I feel like right now, like Wave 3, as you've mentioned, we're still building the status quo in a sense. I feel like there is going to at some point be a set where we might still see a mechanic or two pop up, but I feel like we're getting closer to the set that just takes everything done before and then just takes all of these different unique ideas that defined previous waves and just says, let's turn them all about 90 degrees slightly and just make a set that is tweaked stuff that we already have in our utility belt.
So you're definitely on the right track for some future sets. I wouldn't say that it is all in one set. I think that many of the tools that we're putting into the toolkit, like small size character cards, like folding cards, have one or more interesting applications that are big enough to sustain, some chunk of a set. I don't think that we would specifically have a set that does a lot of that twisting all together. It would always be a mix of, I imagine, and I'm projecting here, but into the future, that it would be a mix of a little bit of new stuff and some of that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, or at least a set where, like, sometime in the future, there's going to be a set where we have like 3 or 4 completely different physical styles of card, except the thing that's interesting is what's written on them, not the actual cards. Right. Because they'll all have already been introduced, we've gotten used to them. Like, there's going to be a point in this game, ideally, where folding cards come out and the community doesn't say, ooh, folding cards. They say, oh, I wonder what these ones fold into. And also, I figured I'd throw out there, I don't think I ever talked to you guys since Wave 2 came out. Did you see did you guys ever get to see that video I did where I was durability testing that hinge on that card?
Sure did. That was the Mirage, right?
Yeah.
Was anybody physically cringing as he was doing it?
No, because we had all done similar things.
Okay.
That was a very familiar exercise to us. My boss, the director of the group that the Transformers TCG is part of, he is legendarily known for doing stuff like that. And
did you guys test any of that with teeth?
We did not chew on the card.
No.
They are non-toxic, I believe. So that, but nevertheless, don't chew on the cards.
Yeah, don't eat cards.
Doesn't do a great thing for the deck. Off the flip. But no, Charlie, that's my director's name. He would take the cards and just basically do what you did in front of executives, because everybody had the same questions, like, is this durable enough? And we wanted to show that, yes, we did our due diligence and QA did its job.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating discussion, like where it always will, like, for I think for good reasons in the core of it, but the goalpost will always move in the discussion, especially on the durability of the Wave 2 folding cards when they were new to us. And at one point it was kind of like, well, if I fold it backwards on the hinge, it'll break. And I remember thinking, like, yes, it will. So don't.
Right. Right. There were a couple of, we were following the discussion very closely, and there were a couple of frustrating points where people were effectively saying, if I do this thing to destroy the card, it will get destroyed. And man, that sucks.
It doesn't stand up to bolt cutters. I mean, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. Right. Like I can't fold it in half the opposite direction.
Well, and there was a discussion bouncing off of that, which was, again, my newbiness to a lot of the tabletop scene. It turns out this actually had some roots, but someone was like, it's real easy if someone gets mad, they could just reach over and rip your card in half if it's a folding card. And I remember saying, like, well, yeah, I could go and rip a card in half if I get real mad. Then I'm going to get thrown out of the shop if I reach across the table and rip my opponent's card in half. And it turns out there's an entire one of the quote-unquote 3 pillars games that might have 3 syllables in its name. Oh, wait, they both do. But it apparently had the local scene for it was known for people getting mad and messing with each other's cards. So I said, well, that's less of a problem of the folding card and more a problem of the humans involved. But
yes, that's not something we can protect with. I guess you could put them into, super hard sleeves.
Yeah.
Like top loaders or...
I mean, the way my brain worked is I was thinking, well, if we're worried about someone reaching over or getting mad, reaching over and ripping one of my characters in half, at what point are we worried about someone reaching over, grabbing any number of the things I have on the table and hurling them out the window?
Mm-hmm.
Or, bouncing off what we were just talking about, trying to physically consume them in a fit of rage. Weird question again. I'm new to tabletop. Y'all ever had that problem over just Wizards games in general of people just trying to eat the opponent's deck or in D&D, like their character sheet? Someone just getting really mad, just cramming that thing down their mouth. Like,
you mean at the office? No.
Or at events. I don't know. I'm new to tabletop.
I mean, tabletop players are a pretty friendly bunch, and there have always been, in any group of people who are coming together for their hobby, there are some people who not play by the sort of socially acceptable rules, and every hobby has its way of dealing with that. So, but the great thing about the tabletop community is that it is a welcoming community and respectful and friendly.
I will say, like, I know that MTG way back in the mid-90s or early 90s opened up with the notion of anti, and I will say, if anyone wants to really, like, just really intimidate me, if y'all will play some Transformers TCG, I'll call them hard games, where the winner also eats the opponent's deck physically. Like, obviously we don't condone it because that's dangerous, but also if you do it, like, you're really cool. Like, I would definitely kowtow to a player who's like, I'll eat your cards. Just straight faced.
I wouldn't recommend it.
No, I mean, obviously you shouldn't eat cards.
There's one last thing that I wanted to just say to all of the folks listening today. So the promo kit for in-store play is still available up until the cutoff date for stores to sign up for it is April 22nd, which probably means that there's a couple of days left. And it is, while supplies last, have your stores register for this, get one sent. It's Wizard sends that to stores while supplies last. And that contains a bunch of cool promo cards. We've shown Smashdown the Battle Master, and there's that's for the release day event, and there's 3 more promos in there that support in-store play. So if you guys have been fantastic, you two, Aaron and Chris, have been fantastic at helping build community, and the listeners to the cast. If you are looking to start community in your local game store, this is a great way to provide a little bit of incentive for your store owner or manager to sign up and start supporting play in the store.
And I said this on Twitter. I'll throw it out here also. The toy of Smashdown I already really like, so seeing that he gets to have that kind of top-level promo card spotlight gave me a little bit of glee. It was nice to see.
So I need to check on this, but I am almost positive that Smashdown Chi.
Oh. That works. Then she is actually legit my favorite Battlemaster figure that I've seen so far, so that is super cool. Because I think there's a certain hardcoreness to, like, physically turning into a hammer that I can respect.
Yeah.
Right? I love that Battlemaster. I think that Battlemaster toy is absolutely fantastic design, and I cannot wait to get one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, again, like I was saying about, Rapido, like that is the kind of card that I want to just force a deck around at least once, based on, I think that is a cool character card.
Come to think of it, there's a little bit of the color scheme in common between Rapido and Smashdown there, with the blue horns and the sort of red body.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, in the far-flung future, I sure would like to equip Rapido with Smashdown. But I'm cool if it doesn't happen. It would be a very color-coded combination if it were to take place. Also, I can't push Rapido this hard. That Spreem is the one I really have to back, but I'm glad we talked about Rapido today.
All right.
I guess anything else, Drew, on your end that you want to talk about before we close this up?
Only that it is always a pleasure to talk about new stuff.
Oh, likewise.
I love talking about new stuff.
No, I appreciate you coming out here, and I especially appreciate that you make me feel comfortable to, like I said, wiggle the flathead screwdriver around, talk about some weird stuff. it feels like we're just having a regular podcast, which is one of the biggest things I can ask for, talking to someone who's also in industry working on some aspect of, Transformers media that we really enjoy.
That is one of the reasons why I enjoy being on the podcast. It is awesome to be able to talk both the game side and the Transformers story and creative side. And you guys have a vast knowledge of the brand and the toys and the history, and it's wonderful being able to point out the little lesser known bits that we're trying to get across and talk about them.
I mean, I'll clarify and say, we definitely have a vast and wide knowledge, except when it comes to forearms. That is a demonstrable weakness that we both have.
We got a big hole in our knowledge there. We'll have to go start pulling the wiki.
We got to go to Forearm University.
I mean, now that you have identified the hole in your knowledge, there's a path to fixing that.
Yeah.
True. I got to do some forearm knowledge reps and get all this Transformers forearms programmed into my brain. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing some more spoilers from this. I'm the most looking forward to the clearly improving and hopefully still improving path on Canadian release. Because at the end of the day, I want my local scene to thrive, and like I said, today's news that we got from our retailers was a real big boon, and I'll throw out there too, in case Canadian retailers don't know this. Anyone listening in Canada, if your retailer doesn't know this, it's in fine print on the WPN page. Canadian retailers just have to be WPN stores. In the fine print on that Wave 3 promo page, it says Canadian retailers are just going to get the promo stuff as long as they're WPN. So double check with your store and mention that to them, and tell them hey, if you're not running Transformers, you ought to, because you're going to get promo cards if you do. So to do it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys spreading that message. It's an important initiative for us to help onboard retail stores. It's one of the big things that we're doing right now, making sure that people who want to play Transformers have local game stores that they can play in. And this is a big part of that.
And especially if your local store, speaking to Canadians a lot here, if your local store is a scene of 5 or 6 folks, everyone wins having promo cards hitting the store. Right. You're all still going to be playing for them, but it's not like you're not facing the sheer numbers of an MTG event. And it to me, and in the local scene, definitely, we were all talking about it. It just makes it a lot more exciting, because it's not like we're going to have to beat each other up necessarily to get all these promo cards. There's going to be lots to go around. We're going to be able to make fun events around them, especially with those gold foil cards, whatever they are.
Yeah. Whatever they are, can't wait to show them to the public. Just speaking specifically about Canadian stores, every Canadian WPN store outside of Quebec is going to be automatically sent the promo kit. So for Canadian players, if your store is already signed up as a WPN store, it'll be on its way. For everywhere else in the world, the store has to specifically go and sign up for that. But we've had some questions from stores who want to join this program but aren't already part of the WPN. They should just contact Wizards. They want to run Transformers as play in their store. Contact our customer support or retail support links on the webpage for more information if they want to sign up for being WPN stores.
And with that, unless Aaron, do you have anything you want to throw in at the very end here?
No.
All right, then I'll just say thank you again, Drew, and somewhere out there in the ether, the ghost of John, for joining us. It's a pleasure as always. Hopefully we'll talk to you again the next time there's a cool thing happening. And to all of you listening, thanks for tuning in again, be it on YouTube or over at TFW directly. We do talk about the TCG stuff in these dedicated podcasts. When me and Aaron are on a podcast, sometimes if we got new stuff, we'll talk about it here and there on the even-numbered episodes too, if you want to go and dig through some of those. But in the meantime, we will talk to you all later. Thank you, Drew, for our fourth time.
Thank you again, guys.
And take it easy and stay safe.
What the fuck's going on down there?